Um, Welcome everybody. How are you doing today? I really hope that everybody's doing really well. And today I wanted to speak a little bit about surrender, as it is the topic of our upcoming program for returning students. Surrender, or the invitation to surrender, is always naturally present on the inner. It naturally arises here. And yet it is not always easy to notice or recognize. And that really is the force of habit, or the outgoing movement of the mind. We all have our different taste of, or at times different experience, a little different experience of surrender. And sometimes initially surrender manifests as an outgoing movement, as a surrender to something, or to somebody, or to something. We experience that movement of surrender towards a person, or a situation, or a teacher, or a teaching, or an object. And that external movement, though, is really just a manifestation of an inner movement that is an invitation to, in reality, to simply, for the mind to come to rest in the heart. Ramana was explaining that really well, because in the East, when students come to see a teacher, and when they want to express a level of surrender, they will bow or touch their head or forehead to the feet of the teacher. And what Ramana would say to that is that the true measure of surrender, or the true symptom of surrender or manifestation of surrender, is how much the mind is resting in the heart. So there's also another expression or experience of surrender, which is recognizing and following the movement that arises from the inner. That's moment by moment in your life, right? That movement is what brings you to satsang, for example, right? Or that movement is what brings you right now, and you following that movement is what brings you now to be here and to listen to this. However, so often we also have the force of habit, right? Which is the mind or habits that arise here and tell us, well, we can't do it like this. That's not okay. It's not okay to follow that. So it's very powerful to learn to recognize that movement and to follow it. And every time we follow it, we also grow in trust, which is so essential for awakening, embodiment, and freedom. So speaking about surrender also brings me to speak a little bit more about what I call honesty. And it's not this, old paradigm understanding of honesty, which so often used to be, let me tell you what I think about you, let me be honest with you, right? So when I speak about honesty, I'm really speaking about the honesty of presence, the honesty of knowing that presence is our true nature. Right? That's a very powerful honesty, right? To know that presence is our true nature, that presence is the true nature of everything and everybody. And also, like with surrender, there's another expression of honesty, or another level or layer of honesty, which is the honesty of your experience moment by moment. And so often people gravitate either towards one or the other. And sometimes in a spiritual arena, in a spiritual search, we tend to just over focus on the honesty of presence and not always include the honesty of our moment by moment experience. And that is so powerful, that is such a powerful congruence that happens when the inner and outer match, when what we know on the inner also matches on the outer, in the way we are in the world, in the way we behave, in the way we approach relationships, in the way we, show up, relate in the world. So very powerful, and I will be speaking more about this honesty, which also then again, these are all different ways, different layers of speaking about surrender, which also brings us to, looking at the understanding of individual will versus universal will. When we say, let thy will be done, what does that really mean, right? Individual will really based on the belief that we are a separate individual. And it really is so often a force of habit, and it has its limit. It's limited because it's based on that idea that we are a separate individual. And the universal will, which really, is the movement of the universe that is already present, or is the movement that is already present. And it is really in the difference between those two that we experience suffering. So let us explore this more, let us understand this more deeply, experientially. Let us know more about this so that we can say, let thy will be done, and really learn to live in surrender to what is, and really understand the deepest part of surrender, which is following the inner movement as it arises here, and ultimately, which is the measure of our spiritual growth, ultimately the mind resting or merging in the heart.